Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist Sunday and school. And boy, do we have a show for you today. We're covering Esther.
The synergy broke.
Yeah, it did. We are covering Esther, though, and I have been reading into the scholarship of Esther, and it's really, really cool, honestly. I have been really enjoying it. And
Excellent.
I got a whole bunch of notes. You guys see? Whole bunch of them.
Do you want me to zoom in?
Well, you can if you want.
Wow.
But don't give
Check
anything
out
away.
Lawrence's
Notes. Lots of
Don't
notes.
look
Alright,
closely at them, though, because that's giving it away.
During that period, you now know what we're going to go over, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, all right,
It was
see you
really
later.
quick.
Yeah.
Good show, everybody.
But before we get into that,
Yes, 100
why
point
don't we
show.
go? Yeah,
Oh,
100-point show.
Finally doing it in the correct order, are we?
Yes.
All right.
So I have my 100-point show question ready.
Okay.
Yeah. What is the former name for the alpha text version of Esther?
Bravo.
That's what it used to be called.
Mm-hmm.
It's not called that anymore. It's called the alpha text
Gotcha.
now.
I tried.
Haman text.
Wow, amazing. What's your
I
answer?
already did it.
Okay, the answer is Lucianic.
Oh, damn.
Luciana.
Aw,
Yes.
man.
I don't know why. Don't ask.
Wow.
So-
well,
That's your answer, Lucianic.
that's wonderful. Here's my 100-point show question.
Bring it.
In Smash Brothers Ultimate, what's the main difference in gameplay between Marth and female Marth? Lucina.
I don't know. Speed?
No,
No.
you got it wrong.
Damn, I don't fucking
You
know.
got it wrong.
Okay.
It's the amount of damage that the sword does based on how far away they are. It's removed with Lucina, but it exists for Marth.
Yes.
I did it!
That's correct.
I got 100 points!
You gotta hit him with the tip if you're playing as Marth.
Just the tip?
Just the
Yeah.
tip.
Just the tip.
Well, to maximize damage. Anyways, you didn't get it,
I did not.
but Chris finally got something.
Oh, man, I'm the best.
Congratulations. You can cash those in for absolutely nothing.
I'm going to hold on to him forever instead.
Wow.
Actually, one thing I did want to mention that I forgot to put into the announcements, which we are now getting into.
Oh, Jesus.
So on the 15th, you will not be here.
Yes.
But we have Jim Majors coming in. And I think I said this on the last show, but Jim Majors is going to be here in studio. So yeah, be excited for that.
Well,
and we have more announcements too.
we have more announcements.
Yeah.
What's our 666 donation drive up to at this moment?
It is at about 260. Sorry, 360.
Whoa.
That sounds
Yeah.
more like it.
Does anybody have an Xbox laying around?
I'm sure someone does, yes.
Wow, I can
But
just
that's where our
do
alchemy
a
drive.
complete flip for that.
That is what our alchemy drive is at. We're also thinking about starting a second weekly show where we cover apocryphal books. This includes both a lot of the intertestamental stuff
Right.
and a lot of the New Testament apocrypha. I cannot wait to cover some of those texts because they're hilarious.
If it's
Well,
more,
it'll be a while.
It will. It'll be a while.
the more fantastical it is, the better the commentary on my end, because it seems to play a lot into what I look into too. So,
Congratulations.
hooray! I might be mildly useful.
And then another announcement: esoteric Nazism video. How's that going?
Oh, it's going well. Still writing the script, and then I'm probably going to work on that while I'm out of town.
Sure.
So,
And I'm still working on the Lilith video. I was also doing a lot of research for Esther while, in conjunction with the Lilith video. So that slowed it down, but I think things are going to turn out great for not only these upcoming episodes on Esther, but also for the Lilith video. And I have one more book coming in. It should be coming in today.
excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if it comes in today.
I sure hope so. It said that it came in yesterday. It was wrong.
Lol.
Yep. So we got a book review coming up on the Deuteronomistic history.
Yes, our book review. If you haven't seen our previous book review on the Torah, then you should go check that out after watching this.
Yeah.
Yeah, immediately.
No break in between. We also have hopefully we have the Point Pyramid coming up this week. Jim is all up for it. I have yet to hear back from Chris.
I'm right here.
So, not you.
The handsome
Hopefully, it all works out for sometime this week, hopefully before school.
Yeah.
Which starts on Wednesday for me. Also, we have a new shirt idea.
Oh, yeah.
That was funny.
We're also going to be doing, obviously, the t-shirt giveaway today.
Yep.
And
Yes.
remember, all patrons, $10 and up, get automatically entered into a t-shirt giveaway every month.
So, our new shirt idea, why don't you describe that to our audience?
Well, see, I only wrote "existence is futile" and then the word Borgs. So you guys can expand on that.
We were just gonna have Lawrence as a Borg,
Yeah.
and then like cyberpunk text with cool etchings in it, like the Borg, saying "existence is futile." That's it.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just like Photoshop like some random gadgets into Lawrence's face.
Yeah. I'm okay with them.
In your face.
You'll be like CD Head from that one Hellraiser movie.
Surely.
And speaking of shirts,
Yes.
how about we
Spin that wheel.
You want me to do it right now?
Yes.
Haha, I'm doing it.
Well, who is it?
Well, it's not done yet.
Well, when will it be done?
It's done right now. It's whoever the Landon, I think, is, maybe? It's the red one.
It's the
Landon?
red one?
It's the red one.
Are you
Okay.
sure it's the red
Switch
one?
to studio mode.
Okay, got it.
Yep, it's Landon. Sorry, my
Okay.
resolution's too low to tell right
Okay,
here.
fair enough. It is
Well,
Landon. Congratulations,
Landon, you are going to be getting a shirt.
We need to figure out which shirt he doesn't have yet.
Yeah.
Existence is futile.
He doesn't have that one. So, Landon, you win a shirt, buddy.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And one last thing I just want to mention, Sherm Journal. Go to shermjournal.org. It's awesome. It's a free historical journal on the Bible and topics related to the Bible and the ancient Near East. It's
Yep.
fantastic. So I recommend that.
Hey, I put that thing up. You're welcome.
Thanks. So
Wonderful.
let's hop into Esther, and
Before I get started with chapter 1 of Esther, which, by the way, is in my King James version of the Bible.
and to go along with your King James version of the Bible, I have an English Standard Version.
And we also have a stack of the Hebrew Bible, the Robert Alter version with commentary.
With commentary. We also have the Holy Scriptures, according to some Jews, and the new King James Version.
And we also have the Oxford Companion to the Bible
Yes.
and the New Interpreter's Bible Old Testament Survey.
And for this episode and for the next 2 episodes, because I'm splitting it up into 3 episodes, this is Anthony Tomasino's commentary on Esther. Now, I posted about this on Twitter, actually, so you guys can go follow Milwaukee Atheists on Twitter.
Wow.
But this is an awesome book. I mean, I read through... So the commentary actually starts about 120 pages in, and the rest is an introduction.
We're not sponsored by Powerade.
We are not. Or Mountain Dew, but Mountain Dew sponsor us.
Any drink. Sponsor us.
Yeah, that'd be great. There is...
We'll let you know
Anthony
if we hate you
Tomasino has
first.
written a great book. This is fantastic. And I don't agree with absolutely everything in here, and some of it is a little bit outdated, not by too much, but it is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Guys, go pick it up. Esther is just a really cool book when it comes to history, and it is a little mysterious too. We'll get into that. But because I will be referencing Tomasino's commentary and the Old Testament survey a good amount for this. Now, I think what we should do first is, because this is a new book, I should read the introduction to Esther.
Yeah,
don't
why
believe
don't you
you.
read that introduction? And afterwards, you can go
I'm
over
gonna,
some
I'm
other
gonna
stuff.
expound on some stuff, yeah. All right. So, the book of Esther never mentions God's name, yet God clearly orchestrated all of its events. Esther, a Jew living among the exiles in Persia, became queen of the empire in about 480 BC. Haman, a Persian official, sought to eradicate the Jewish minority, but God had prepared Esther, quote, for such a time as this, to save his covenant people. The book was written some decades later to document the origins of the Jewish observance of Purim, which we're still not sure about when it was written. Let's just be clear about that. We have no, it's not that we have no idea, we have some idea.
What's the general range we're looking at?
So it's no earlier than the 5th century BCE, because it talks about Xerxes, and that's when he lived, but no later than the 3rd century BCE. Because the thing is, it lacks any evidence of Greek vocabulary, which, so if you guys know history, Alexander the Great came in with all the other Greeks, and they took over the place. It was the Hellenistic period. You would expect some Greek vocabulary if it was written later than the 3rd century BCE.
Yeah.
And it has also a positive attitude towards Gentile rulers, which is another piece of evidence.
Gentile meaning
Non-Jewish.
non-Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and
Which
because,
is weird.
yeah.
I mean,
the
there
thing
was
is,
a
it
little
does-
bit of
Right
that
after the
in
last
Ezra.
book.
Hold on. It does and it doesn't. This is a very strange book. When talking about the genre of this book, I'll cover it a little bit more because we're still unsure of the genre even of this book. It could possibly be a comedy, like an ancient comedy.
Really?
But the thing is, nobody in the ancient world found it funny, so it sucked as a comedy. So it probably wasn't that. They took it seriously. It's not wisdom literature. It's definitely not history. That is for sure. It is not history. The names of the people, it has been pointed out that Esther is a play on Ishtar, and Mordecai is a play on Marduk. And we're still unsure of all the nitty-gritty details, but the thing is, this serves to do a couple things, but it really depends on which parts of the book were written when, because it could be just a regular etiology of Purim, as in just the origins of the Feast of Purim, but that is really only if chapters, I think it's chapters 9 and 10. Yeah, it's really only if chapters 9 and 10 are original to the text, which we're unsure of, honestly. And I can expound on that when we get to chapters 9 and 10.
All right.
But what it closely resembles, and I think is a pretty strong candidate, is resistance literature. This is how to live among, this is how to live while in subjugation. And it kind of has some comedic plays. There are, you'll definitely see, but this is not history. Let's be clear about that.
How about lists? Are we anticipating any long lists?
Not really.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, I don't. I flipped through it, and I don't think I saw any major lists.
Oh, that's nice.
Dude, YouTube just sent me an email saying now live on your channel. I know I'm live on my channel. Why do I need an email to know that I'm live on my own channel?
You don't. That's ridiculous.
That's stupid. Why would? Okay.
In fact, YouTube, thank you for interrupting our
Yeah,
YouTube
seriously.
stream.
Oh my god. Anyways, let's continue with the introduction. Book was written some decades later to document the origins of the Jewish observance of Purim, which celebrates Israel's survival and God's faithfulness. The author is unknown, but some believe it could have been Esther's cousin Mordecai. Also, no. Who is a key person in the book. Throughout the book, we see God's sovereign hand preserving his people, showing that everything is under his control. So, now that I've read the introduction, in our reading of Esther, we will be covering the additions to Esther.
Right.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the editions and the translations of Esther that we have. Now, Esther is, we have more copies of Esther than any other book in the Bible. Now, most of them, by far most of them.
From the Middle Ages.
Yeah. So much later than like a good amount of the other documents that we have. There's no, and trying to date it is very difficult. But here's some of the, let's start with the translations. So first of all, the one that pretty much all of them are based off of, and I say pretty much all of them because it's not all of them, but it's almost all of them. They're all based on the Masoretic text. That's late 4th century or the early 3rd century BCE. There's also the Alpha text, which, actually, you know what? Before I talk about the Alpha text, I'll talk about the Septuagint. Now, the Septuagint, if for those that don't know, is the first Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. It was written, or maybe I should say composed, in the late 2nd century BCE. And then there's also the Alpha text, and that was, of course, for the 100-point show question today.
Yep.
So the Alpha text was also a Greek version, but it was severely summarized. Like, there are entire narratives that just get like a sentence or two about them. And included in the Alpha text and the Septuagint, which, by the way, the Septuagint version is part of the Eastern Orthodox canon, which means in the Eastern Orthodox Church, or churches, I guess I should say, they have canonized the additions to Esther. So there are 6 big additions to Esther, and they're all referenced by letters. So there's A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Hooray.
I know, amazing letters, alphabets, they're fantastic.
And the one that I presume is A just happens to be before the beginning of chapter 1.
Yes, so A and F form a prologue and an epilogue. So initially, at the very beginning, in the Septuagint version and in the Alpha text, we have something before chapter 1, and we have something after chapter 10. And we are going to be covering every edition.
Okay.
And don't worry, we will obviously tell you when we get to those editions. And it's the Book of Esther is not found in Qumran. There are some texts in Qumran that make it that it kind of seems like they know of an Esther tradition, or they know maybe they know about Purim, but it's not like explicit. It's never called that. So there's no explicit reference to Purim in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Anyways, so talking about the Alpha text a little bit. So there are 4 manuscripts.
What?
The oldest, yes, of the Alpha text. There are 4 manuscripts. The oldest of which dates to 1021 CE. The 6 editions are very similar, but then the rest of is like super abbreviated, and it's shorter than the Masoretic text. And then with the Septuagint version, it's actually the additions make it 50% longer. And in some cases, in the Alpha text, in some cases, translations seem to be from a Semitic original that isn't the Masoretic text. So there are a lot of questions behind all the versions and all the languages that it's been written in, and we're trying to figure out when it was written, in what language it was written, and there are so many questions surrounding Esther, but it is so cool, I think.
Yeah. Well, if you audience members are interested in going more in depth than we possibly could in the show, you should check out the book that Lawrence was showing earlier.
Yes, fantastic book.
Yes.
That's great. So I guess I can start. Because we have an edition, I'm going to start reading from the edition. This is edition A.
Ah!
Now, remember, when we were reading the introduction here, it said that there was no mention of God. True, there is no mention of God in the book of Esther, and it is generally a secular book, but the additions make it religious.
Where are you getting your edition A from?
Let's see. I have all the editions here. This is... Who is it by? It does not actually say who this is by. Should be somewhere. Oh, but the translation is from the something German here.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. Oh my God, this is like Latin or something.
Great.
Septuagint. Okay, so it's prepared by Robert Hanhart, and it was in Septuaginta Vetus Testamentum Grecum. That's some other stuff. I can't even. This is
all right.
like it's a lot of Latin, but that's where it is. Robert Hanhart.
Thanks, Robert.
Well, thanks, Rob.
Yeah, you're a great guy. So I'm going to start with the addition now. If you're not reading from something that contains the additions, it's not going to be right now. We're going to get into chapter 1 right after that. These additions aren't generally that long.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the first edition. In the second year, when Artaxerxes the Great was king, on the first day of Nissa, and this is going to be a little bit different. So it says Artaxerxes, but what it really means is Xerxes.
Mm-hmm.
Because, actually I have this written down too. So this takes place during the reign of Ahasuerus, Xerxes. Artaxerxes is, and we know it's Xerxes and not Artaxerxes, because Artaxerxes in all languages is consistently spelled with a T sound. And there is no T sound here, anything that even makes it. So we know that the king here, referred to as Ahasuerus, is Xerxes.
Okay.
Okay. So, in the second, and I'm just going to replace Artaxerxes with Xerxes. In the second year of Xerxes, when Xerxes the Great was king, on the first day of Nissa, and this says Mardiacus, but it's just Mordecai. Mordecai, the son of Yaros, son of Samias, son of Cassius, from the tribe of Benjamin, saw a dream. He was a Judean man dwelling in the city of Susa, the Persian capital, a great man, serving in the court of the king. Now he was of the group of exiles which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took captive from Jerusalem with Jeconias, the king of Judah. And this was his dream. Look, shouts and confusion, thunder and earthquake, chaos upon the earth. Look, two great dragons came forward, both ready to fight, and a great noise arose from them. And at their sound every nation prepared for war, to fight against a nation of righteous people. Look! I bet it says behold in other translations.
Oh, I bet.
I bet it does.
Oh, man, does it?
I don't know.
I can't put it down if it doesn't.
I know. Look, a day of darkness and gloom, affliction and anguish, oppression and great chaos upon the earth. And the whole righteous nation was in chaos, fearing the evils that threatened themselves, and they were ready to perish. Then they cried out to God, and from their city, as though from a small spring, there came a great river, abundant water, light, and the sun rose, and the lowly were exalted, and devoured those held in esteem. Then, when Mordecai, who had seen this dream, and what God had determined to do, awoke, he had it on his heart and sought until nightfall to understand it in every detail.
Wow.
And,
Every detail.
And Mordecai took his rest in the courtyard with Gabbatha and Thara, the two eunuchs of the king who guarded the court. He both overheard their deliberations and inquired into their ambitions, and learned that they were preparing to lay hands on Xerxes the king, and he told the king about them. Then the king interrogated the 2 eunuchs, and when they confessed, they were led away. And the king wrote these things in the record. And Mordecai wrote concerning these things. And the king ordered Mordecai to serve in the court and gave him gifts for these things. But Haman, the son of Hammedatha, a Bogian, I don't know what that is, was highly esteemed by the king. And he sought to harm Mordecai and his people because of the 2 eunuchs of the king. That is edition A.
Hooray. Man,
So
that's-
it did make it religious because you have this prophecy.
Yeah.
This
Prophetic dream.
Yes.
And it had a little list.
Like
Yes,
Right at the
Joseph.
beginning
Not
there,
really.
tiny list.
No, it
Ooh.
didn't. So it obviously foretells events that are going to transpire in this book. And you know what's really interesting? Josephus, when he knew of this kind of tradition, now we get a little bit of a different origin story for Haman, like what tribe he was a part of or where he was from, depending on which translation. And Josephus listed him as not a Bogian, but something else. I have it somewhere in here. I should have written that one down. But he does record a different tradition about Haman.
Oh. Well,
And also, yeah, that's why we look at Josephus also, because of his like short attestations to it. Like while he doesn't, and we also have a hard time figuring out what he was calling canon. It is just difficult to figure out because it wasn't explicit, and a lot of books used to be together. So it's all a big mess, honestly.
yeah.
Yeah, but that was edition A.
Interesting how edition A made our intro way longer. It's like almost half an hour now until we haven't gotten into the reading yet.
Yeah, I know.
It's hilarious. What an addition.
Yeah, and also I was talking about
No, it's fine.
scholarship and stuff.
Okay, well, why don't I get started in the King James Version here
Sure.
on chapter 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, that is
Yeah, Ahasuerus. What is your say?
Ahasuerus.
Okay.
It is separated by like dashes into the different parts,
sure.
so it is supposed to be Ahasuerus.
Great.
Yeah. Ahasuerus.
Yeah.
But it.
Ahasaurus. That's
You
what I'm
know.
going to call him.
He's extinct now.
Yep. Which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia over 107 provinces.
And you know what's kind of interesting about that? I think it's in the Septuagint version. Let me read here. That was still in the first verse. Or was it the other one? Or was it in the alpha text? 100. Okay. I think that there were some versions that had it written down as 120 to make it match up with the book of Daniel.
Oh, but it's not that.
It
in
is not
here.
that.
That in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants. The power of Persia and Media,
Oh, here we go. So it's Media, by the way.
Media,
Okay, so here we go. This is what I was talking about before. The Syriac. Okay, so the Syriac has here 120 provinces rather than the 127 provinces of the Masoretic text. This emendation was probably made to harmonize with Daniel 6:2. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps.
excellent.
By the way, he has pages of commentary on the first 2 verses.
Well, that's much more commentary than we have in
Yeah, but
this Hebrew Bible.
Yeah, on the thing. I'll open that up too.
Yeah.
But we have all this stuff here.
Okay. So the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty, many days, even 180 days. So he's throwing a huge party just to show off all of his stuff. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small.
And by the way, Shushan is supposed to be Susa, the Persian capital. So keep that in mind.
Okay, so this is the capital of Persia. And they've been partying for a really long time.
Yes.
Hooray.
Both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace, where were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rings and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance, according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also, Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the woman in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbana, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcas, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on. But the Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him.
So
he was essentially like, "Hey, come like strip for my
yeah,
people."
Yeah. Essentially, that is what is going on.
Yeah. The king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. By times, what do they mean? Like astrology?
Knew the times.
What's the
That's
style at the time?
what verse is that? 13.
Yeah, 13.
They were experts in protocol. So, okay, so the literal meaning is knowers of the times, but the end of the verse argues for this sense. One notes that the sentence beginning here sprawls over 3 relatively long verses, another departure from the stylistic norms of First Commonwealth Hebrew narrative.
I wasn't joking. It's literally the style at the time.
Yep.
Shut up, Chris.
Oh, come on. I'm correct.
And the next unto him was Karshana, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the Queen Vashti according to the law, because she hath not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains? And Memucan answered before the king and princes, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, when it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. So, like, the complaint is that all of the women in the land are going to rebel against their husbands.
Yep.
Yes, the absolute fear.
This
And the thing is, this is effectively the king and his court that are just afraid that all the women are going to rebel.
so basically, it's like feminism. Like,
Yep.
wow, this is ridiculous. Likewise, shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen, thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. So even between the princes and the princesses and all the ladies, like, no, they're just gonna riot. They're going to have a woman riot. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it not be altered, because that's worked so well before, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus. And let the king...
So divorce.
Yes.
Bam.
Divorce.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. And let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
And small.
And the saying pleased the king and the princes.
Yeah.
And the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters unto all the king's provinces, and to every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. I see.
So it's
I
published in a
see
bunch of
why you
different
call
languages,
it
yeah.
resistance literature.
Yeah.
Because so far we have had literally the imposition of patriarchal rule over the family
Yes.
unit in response to literal misogyny, like fear of women
Yeah.
directly.
Yeah. They're like, oh, well, if the queen... okay, so it's also important to note, so Xerxes and all Persian kings had a lot of wives, but they had one queen. And this is going to become important later when Esther enters the scene.
So basically, it's not just that she's getting divorced, it's that she essentially will get replaced entirely in her function.
Yeah.
And the other wives of the king would not have any?
They don't matter right now because
Oh.
for the story, there's gonna be a way for Xerxes to figure out who his wife is. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it, and it plays off of the misogyny that we have already seen.
Great.
Wow. Well, if you're enjoying Esther so far,
I know I am. Drop a like.
it's a lot more entertaining than the
All those
fucking
lists.
Chronicles.
Oh my god. Ugh.
Give us a like. Maybe help us out with our 666 donation drive and
Yes,
all that.
That is true. We're
Lawrence
slowly
is
getting
going to
there.
get us into the next chapter. I'm going to head to the restroom.
Oh, you're gonna head to
real
the
quick.
restroom. All
Yeah, I
right,
just
fine.
chugged a bunch of Powerade.
Okay. Just looking over a couple of notes just to make sure I don't have to cover anything after chapter 1. I do not. Okay.
Hooray.
So when we get after this next part, I'm going to expound a little bit on the queen of the people and how exactly that works in history, and one of the reasons why this cannot be historical. All right, so chapter 2. After these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus, and please remember, Ahasuerus is Xerxes. After these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus had abated, he remembered Vashti, and what she had done, and what had been decreed against her. Then the king's young men who attended him said, "Let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom to gather all the beautiful young virgins to the harem in Susa the citadel, under custody of Hegai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women."
All of them?
Yes.
I'll let the guy with
and
no
this is
balls
See,
be
this
in
is really
charge, right?
this is one interesting point. It says that they're looking for virgins to be part of the harem.
Yeah.
That would mean one of his wives, but not the queen. But it continues, though. "Let their cosmetics be given to them, and let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti." This pleased the king, and he did so.
He ran a beauty
A
pageant.
beauty pageant.
Ridiculous.
That is not how it was decided. That is ridiculous. You'd probably pick out of the harem that you already have. You could get a bigger harem.
Like, there she is, Miss Persia.
But, yeah, beauty pageant. A beauty pageant for who's queen.
Oof. And OT brings up a good point. How do they test their virginity?
Yeah, ask them. I don't know.
Ask
Virginity
him.
rod.
Virginity rod. Yeah.
Some other thing that they're not going to talk about until later.
Now, there was a Jew in Susa,
Uh-oh.
the citadel, whose name was Mordecai,
Okay.
the son of Jair, son of Shammai, son of Kish, a Benjaminite.
Oh, and we know about the Benjamites.
We do. Benjaminites, no good.
I
Those
thought
guys
they were
are
great.
Those guys are bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
Man.
No.
What about the half tribe of Manasseh?
Those guys are even worse.
Those guys are the barrel.
Who had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives, carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away. Also no, and Jonah pointed this out earlier, but he would be really old. This was somebody else.
Yeah, right?
So I have this. Tomasino actually expands a good bit about this. I'm going to see if I can find it. But the age of that Mordecai would have to be means that, sorry, it wasn't this guy. It was somebody else.
Name Mordecai. Different guy.
Yeah. So I'm just quickly looking through here on the big issue. He has this whole list of
Great. Let's
issues.
read all the lists. List.
Well, it's a list of issues
Uh,
of like problems as to why it's not historical. Let's see.
maybe we should make a separate video on that, like why Esther's not historical.
I feel like we could, because
Easily.
I have been reading a lot about Esther and I'm very much enjoying it.
Okay, here it says the frequent choice by translators of cosmetics for the term unguents is misconceived. Even in this fairy tale world, putting on cosmetics for 6 months running, see verse 12, we'll get to that, would be extremely odd. The idea is rather that the young virgins are steeped at length in substances that will make their bodies supple and fragrant.
Weird.
So like
Okay, so-
perfume.
Okay, gotcha.
So they don't stink.
Because it kind of sucks over in Persia.
Yeah, they didn't have hot water
But here-
showers back then.
Yeah, here. Sorry for the little boring section here, but here's something on Mordecai. Mordecai surely appears to be the hero of our narrative since his virtues are lauded in the final verse of the book. As is typical in biblical narrative, there is no description given of him. It is possible that he represents the upper class of Judea since his ancestor was taken away in the first deportation with Joachim, the deportation that had consisted primarily of the gentry of Jerusalem. The account of his genealogy, designating him as a Benjaminite of the family of Kish, is probably designed to imply still more. He is almost certainly linked here to the line of King Saul, who was also a Benjaminite and son of Kish. Thus, he is not merely noble, but royalty. His clash, here, listen to this, his clash with Haman the Agagite is a personal one. The text implies that Haman is a descendant of Agag, the Amalekite king whom Saul had failed to kill, precipitating his rejection by God.
We should also note.
So I think that's really cool storytelling, honestly.
That if he is of the lineage of Saul, that Saul suffered from a number of mental disorders,
Yep.
which probably might have a genetic component. So we might see some similar character traits pop up.
Yeah, we'll look for that. But yes, we're obviously going to get into Haman later, or not even that much later. But we're going to get into him, and it's just a really interesting thing. That's a good part of the reason I think this is not literal, because that kind of stuff doesn't happen in reality. That stuff happens in fiction.
And then he grew wings and flew away.
That too. Anyways, but yeah, this Mordecai did not come. He's not one of the people that was initially exiled. That would be nearly impossible. So where the hell was I when he was carried away? He was bringing up Hadassah, that is Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So, cousin. But, adopted parent. So, when the king's order and his edict were proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered in Susa the citadel in custody of Hegai, Esther also was taken into the king's palace and put in custody of Hegai, who had charge of the women. And the young woman pleased him and won his favor.
Hooray.
And he quickly provided her with her cosmetics and her portion of food. And with 7 chosen young women from the king's palace, and advanced her and her young women to the best place in the harem. So already ascending the ladder. Esther had not made known her people or kindred, for Mordecai had commanded her not to make it known. So nobody knows that she's a Jew. She's keeping that Jewishness hidden.
Yes.
And this plays a role in some storytelling. After this, should I do it after this chapter? Maybe a little bit later. But we should compare the story of Esther with some other people like Joseph and Daniel.
Right. Well, here in Alter's commentary, he brings up Joseph a few times.
I bet.
For example, in verse 7, it says, the young woman was comely in features and comely to look at, in reference to Esther. Mm-hmm. It says, this doubling of the epithet for beauty may suggest that she is lovelier than all the other assembled virgins. The same double epithet is applied to Joseph in Genesis 39:6, and its use here probably signals the general allusion to the Joseph story. In both cases, we have an extraordinarily beautiful Hebrew woman who ends up in a position of grandeur and power in the royal court. And in the additions, in addition A, they mentioned Mordecai dreaming, which of course is similar to Joseph's precognitive dreams.
Yep.
Reuben.
And
Or,
What?
Lawrence, your mic's dead. Hold on.
Lawrence's mic is dead?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well,
It's a good thing.
and in verse 9, it says,
Got it covered.
and the young woman was pleasing in his eyes, which Robert Alter says, again, is like Joseph, who finds favor in the eyes of everyone he encounters. See Genesis 39:4 and 23.
Yeah, and it's going to come up a bit more too. Actually, for later, can you open up the Old Testament survey to page 161? That's around the bookmark, yeah. Just leave it open.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll put it here.
Okay. And let's see. Where was I? So, obviously, she's keeping the fact that she is Jewish hidden. And every day, Mordecai walked in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and what was happening to her.
Because he couldn't go in.
You had to walk by.
Yeah, he just had to walk by. He wasn't part of the court yet.
Well, in here it
Wow.
calls it the woman's court,
The women's court. Okay.
which would imply that he isn't given access, like a woman's restroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when the turn came for each young woman to go in to King Artaxerxes, after being 12 months under the regulations for the women, since this was the regular period of their beautifying, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with spices and ointments for women. When the young woman went in to the king in this way, she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the harem to the king's palace.
This is a nice little commentary note here. This is another fantastic detail of the fairy tale plot. Each of these beautiful virgins spends a full year steeping herself in fragrant oil, perfumes, etc., so that when she comes to the bed of the king, her body will in every one of its cells be in a state of perfect erotic attractiveness.
Yeah. In the evening, she would go in, and in the morning, she would return to the second harem in custody of Shashgaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not go in to the king again unless the king delighted in her, and she was summoned by name. When the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his own daughter, to go in to the king, she asked for nothing except what Haggai, the king's eunuch, who had charge of the women, advised. Now Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. And when Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign, the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. So they decided
She was sluttier.
queen. They decided queen. They have this entire harem, and they decided queen
So let me get
because
this.
she was so good in the sack.
Yeah, that's it. The other lady wouldn't put out. That's why she's not queen. She wouldn't dance naked either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bad precedent for queen. No longer queen.
Yep.
Get a slutty queen.
Then
So this,
Okay, go ahead.
the commentary here talks that what I think is proper
Stupid story.
interpretation of what's happening here is that he's literally calling in women and then having sex with them
Yeah.
Sure.
in order to determine whether or not he wants them to be queen.
yes,
That is absurd political policy.
I agree.
Where's God in this again?
So
This
this
is a secular text.
is probably
Why did
the
God write this?
most hedonistic person in the Bible so far.
Yeah.
It's up there.
Yeah.
It's definitely up there.
It's pretty bad.
Let's
And he keeps eunuchs in his court.
yes, they're everywhere. They're the guys running the show.
they're not very well motivated though without their testicles.
I'm trying to pull up some commentary here. Let's see. What did I just read? 17, right? Yeah, okay. So while all those who have seen Esther have had favorable impression, the king loves her more than any other woman.
Wow.
The word love here is likely meant to contrast the word delight of verse 14. The other women might be pleasing, but Xerxes' feelings for Esther go a step beyond. The Hebrew word translated love, ahab, interesting, can signify a wide variety of emotions or attitudes, from lust to appreciation to genuine love. And then it references a scholar.
I love that.
Okay. References a scholar named Bush who claims the word, quote, expresses neither the deep emotional bonds nor the romantic feelings that are usually associated with the English term. In Xerxes' case, he could surely not have had a mature emotional commitment to Esther after only a single night. But we need not be completely cynical about his feelings either. Obviously, this was a woman who could make quite an impression, so much so that he is later willing to give her half his kingdom. In addition to his love, Esther won favor and kindness from the king, just as she had from everyone else whom she encountered. In 2:9, she had won kindness from Haggai. In 2:15, favor from those who saw her from the king. She receives both, signifying the great impression that she had made on him. And yeah, if you want, you can look. Wait, hold on. Where does this end? Why is there no commentary on that? Okay, fine, whatever. Sorry.
You figured it out?
Yeah, I figured it out. It's just not there.
Hot dog.
So let's continue here. Then the king gave a great feast for all his officials and servants. It was Esther's feast. He also granted a remission of taxes to the provinces and gave gifts with royal generosity.
Is this related? Is this just happening independently?
I don't know. Why is
he doing that?
Is that yeah, like that's just added on there. I'm looking through this. Do you have any thoughts there, Ruben?
Yeah, I don't really.
Nope.
Just
tacked on.
There.
Okay. So that's 218, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now this is something I actually can check. He includes textual variations in this commentary. Nope, nothing interesting.
Great. Thank you.
Yep, amazing.
Wonderful.
Let's continue. Now, when the virgins were gathered together the second time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. Esther had not made known her kindred or her people, as Mordecai had commanded her. For Esther obeyed Mordecai, just as when she was brought up by him. In those days, as Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthan and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, who guarded the threshold, became angry and sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus.
I've noticed a trend that all the eunuchs hate everyone.
Yeah, they just get angry all the time. And, well, everyone here just kind of gets angry all the time. Really,
Sure.
Nobody's happy.
Nobody's happy.
And this came to the knowledge of Mordecai, and he told it to Queen Esther. And Esther told the king in the name of Mordecai. When the affair was investigated and found to be so, the men were they were both hanged on the gallows. And it was recorded in the book of the Chronicles in the presence of the king.
So, hanged on the gallows. The Hebrew appears to say we're hanged on a tree, but the historical evidence points to impalement, not hanging, as the customary form of execution in the ancient Near East.
Is that all the way through impalement?
Yeah. In many instances, the condemned person was put to death in some other fashion, and his impaled body was then displayed as a form of humiliation. And the Book of Acts, you read the part about the Book of Acts, right?
Well, mine says Chronicles, but...
Oh. So the Book of Acts, on the model of the designation repeatedly used in the Book of Kings, would be royal annals.
Yeah.
The mention of the recording of the event prepares the background for the reading out loud of this episode to the Insomniac King in Chapter 6, which
Insomniac King?
we'll run into that.
That's poor guy. Should get some sleep.
And I'm looking through just a few things here. Verse 21, and Mordecai was sitting in the gate of the king, duplicates the end of verse 19. Yeah.
Hot.
Neat.
Damn.
And also, so in the alpha text, apparently, the verses 19 through 22 are found near the beginning of the narrative, after Mordecai's dream in chapter 1. The Septuagint actually contains two versions of the conspiracy, one after the dream account in chapter 1 and another here.
All right.
Yeah.
And is that the end of that chapter?
That is the end of that chapter.
Wow. Well, I hear some strange interference.
I also hear something strange. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that we're reading that stuff that didn't end up being included.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it, though.
Yeah. It could be. Chris, is the thing up?
What?
Is the thing up?
Behold, I am your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to let all you heathens and sinners know that I support this wonderful episode of Atheist Sunday School. Lawrence and Reuben try their very best to bring you the true glory of the Bible, and they need your help. They have provided links to their Patreon page and other social media just for you. Once again, my name is Jesus Christ, and this is Milwaukee Atheists. The Lord is with them. God bless.
Wow, incredible.
Jesus Christ, thank you. That was great. That was wonderful. It was amazing. So, because Jesus wants us to, I think we should hop right into chapter 3. And chapter 3, in the middle of it, pretty much. Actually, I'm sorry.
Almost at the end.
Yeah, almost at the end, actually. It's just pretty short. There is another edition.
Yeah.
And that would be edition B. I'm going to have that pulled up.
Is it longer than the whole chapter?
I don't even know. I didn't take a
It
look
might
at
be.
It might be.
Hot damn.
And I don't think it is, though.
Okay.
Well,
Well, let's
no,
get
it's
started.
not.
While you're pulling that up, I'll get us started. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son...
Haman. What does yours say, Haman?
Yep.
It says Haman.
It says Haman.
Yeah.
It says Haman.
Okay.
But all the Jews I've ever known say Haman.
Really?
Yes,
Hey,
all
man.
of them.
Well, that's weird.
What's up?
The son of Hamadatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. That is not what they said in the edition A about Haman and his background.
That he was,
That he was an Agagite?
yeah, the descendant of Agag. Let's go back and check.
Yeah.
Let's see. This is for Haman. Oh yeah, because it says he was a Boogian.
Whatever that is.
They're the same, I guess. Ta-da.
And
Well, let's find out. I think he probably has. Yep, here we go. So the first thing, instead of the Agagite, the Septuagint, and Alpha Text, read Bugayon. Yes. Yes.
well, that's confusing.
Indeed.
And apparently, more important to the audience, however, would have been how the name sounded to their ears. It is impossible to imagine that this name would not have brought a smile to an ancient Jew's face, since it sounds so similar to the Hebrew word Hamon, and that means tumult or confusion. The term Agagite is rendered as a gentilic noun, likely indicating ethnic origin, and we already talked about that. And of course, they make the reference to Agag, king of the Amalekites. Yeah, that's okay. So here we go. So in the Septuagint and Alpha text versions, Haman's appellation is rendered Bugaion, Bugaios, though various explanations have been offered for this term. The most likely is that it is related to the common Greek noun Bugaios, which means braggart.
Oh,
Yeah, very useful commentary.
very useful. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman. For the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressed thou the king's commandment? You know, he got rid of his wife because she didn't want to strip.
Yeah.
Kind of
What
a
are they-
reasonable guy.
What's he going to do to Mordecai because he doesn't want to bow to this dude?
Well,
He is breaking the king's commandment.
remember, this is also Haman getting really mad about this.
Yes. Now it came to pass
And
when...
this is actually, sorry to interrupt you there, but this actually has to do with the resistance literature. And this is teaching you how to, this is like a little piece of resistance. So while there is this this norm for
Debauchery.
to bow or whatever, there's this one guy who just isn't.
Yes.
He isn't bowing. And the way that retribution will be paid is going to be hilarious.
All right.
Except not to the ancient readers. They didn't find it funny. They thought it
Oh
was
man,
serious.
I mean, it
But
might be funny to us.
no, but it's going to be funny to us. Of course it is.
Now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman, to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone. For they had showed him the people of Mordecai, wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom
You okay?
of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. So he's like, this Jew won't bow
These-
down to
these
me.
Jews-
I'll kill all of them. Ah!
Yep.
That's-
Apparently. Another
Okay.
Hitler here. Pre-Hitler.
Apparently. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of the king Ahasuerus,
And this is, at this point, Esther would have been queen for 5 years.
So how long has this guy reigned? 7 plus 5 years. And another year. He didn't have a queen for a year.
Oh, yeah.
So 8 years and then another 5 years. So what?
No, so it would have been 4 years, because,
Oh, so it'd be 12 years this guy's reigned.
well, it says in his 12th year, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
no, it says that directly.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
They cast Pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month.
Let's,
To the 12th month, that is the month of Adar.
okay. So yeah, they cast a lot, but what it says is poor. That's one.
Yes.
Let's talk about poor a little bit.
What is Pur?
Okay, so this now he's so Robert Alter says this is a Persian loan word, and thus is immediately glossed by the Hebrew word for lot, goral, the Hebrew plural form of the word Purim, becomes the name of the carnivalesque holiday for which the Book of Esther serves as rationale. At least in some sense it does.
Yes.
Definitely part of that. Now I have some stuff written here on Purim and Pur specifically. So it does mean a lot, but it's actually it's originally an Akkadian word. The way in which lots are used is negative, so it would be weird that they would name Purim after this. So this shows probably that Purim was already an existing holiday that existed before Esther was written, and Esther was written in some way to give a story behind it. And the thing is, the fact that they name it this way, this is the equivalent, and Tomasino knows this, it's the equivalent to Easter being called Feast of 30 Pieces of Silver. That would be ridiculous. So, like, why would you name it that?
Because that's a great name.
Unless, like, this is, retroactively looking at it.
Yeah, it seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his rings from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. So he gives him a signet ring to show that he has, legal power over some people.
And the weird thing is, the king in some way ends up being like, not like the main hero, but like an ally in some way. We're going to get to that. So it's really weird that so early in the book, they're making him look like an idiot.
Or a jerk.
Because first he's afraid of women and them not listening to him. And then he just says, yes, go kill people. I don't care. I am the king.
It seems like an awful king.
Yes.
That's a bad choice.
Not that there are many good kings
Right,
out there.
Let's go look up the historical examples. It might take a minute, but there aren't that many.
Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, that there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus, it was written and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by posts into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, to cause perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is a month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
Stop.
And after this is the
Yes.
yes.
After this is the is edition B.
Edition B.
Yes. And this is the edict issued by Haman. And what's really interesting, also later in the book, we get an edict issued by Mordecai that is only also in the Septuagint version. So what is interesting is that only those two, like the rest of the book is written in Hebrew, but only those two, we can tell, were originally composed in Greek.
Yes.
So, and because it's so similar in form and in language, it has been attributed to the same author. So editions B and E have been attributed to the same person.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Someone was writing fan fiction.
Yeah. Let's see. So edition B. This is a copy of the letter. It's not. The great king once again, it says Artaxerxes, but since it is in fact Xerxes, I am going to say Xerxes.
But you
Wow,
should point
crazy.
out that they incorrectly say Artaxerxes.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yes, a lot.
for every part.
So
that
the
could
great
fit.
King Xerxes writes as follows to the rulers of the 127 lands from India to Ethiopia, and to the officials under them. Being the ruler of the many nations, and master of the whole world, I have determined, not high-mindedly with presumption of authority, but always acting in moderation and with kindness, to secure lasting tranquility in the lives of my subjects, and in order to make my kingdom peaceable and open to travel throughout all its extent, to restore the peace desired by all the people. When I asked my counselors how this might be accomplished, Haman, who excels among us, is in sound judgment and is distinguished for his unchanging goodwill and steadfast fidelity, and has attained the second place in the kingdom, pointed out to us that among all the tribes in the world there is scattered a certain hostile people, who have laws contrary to those of every nation, and continually disregard the ordinances of kings, so that the joint administration of the kingdom that we honorably intend cannot be achieved. Therefore, whereas we understand that since this nation stands constantly all alone in opposition to all humanity, perversely following in a estranging manner of life due to their laws, and since it is ill disposed to our interests, doing the worst harm, and in order that our kingdom may not attain stability, we therefore have ordered that you utterly destroy those indicated to you in the letters written by
Those
Haman.
indicated to you.
Yep.
Wow, how specific.
Who is in charge of the affairs of state and is our second father, including women and children, by the daggers of the enemies, without any compassion and restraint, on the 14th day of the 12th month Adar, of this present year, so that those who have long been hostile and so remain, when they in one day have gone down to Hades by force, may in time hereafter render the matters of state completely tranquil and untroubled for us.
Yeah, kill them all so things are better. Holy cow, that's bad.
Wow.
Yes.
You know, that does sound kind of like what a king would say if he was about to do all that. So
Right.
good writing, I'll give him that, but I highly doubt that is
How
any
that would work.
like, no, it is not the actual letter that they used. And this chapter finishes up saying, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all the people that they should be ready against that day. The posts went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan, the palace, and the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. And that's the end of chapter 3.
Yes. Drop a like, subscribe if you guys are enjoying the stream. I think with all this shit that we have out here, we're putting on a pretty good show. A lot of good information, I think.
Yeah?
So, all the shilling stuff, check in, the description and all that stuff. Worship us.
Yes, worship us.
Yes, now I wanna read a little portion here.
Okay.
And I also want to show some parallels. So if you would allow me a couple minutes here.
No more minutes for
Fuck you. In this section of Esther, we enter the focus of the narrative. The final main character, Haman, is introduced as the newly appointed vizier of Xerxes' kingdom. Haman is identified as an Agagite, a designation that would raise red flags for the Jewish readers of this text. The name Agag is associated with the Amalekites, bitter enemies of the Jews. The king orders all people to bow before Haman, but Mordecai, the Jew, refuses. This act of defiance sends off the main crisis of the narrative. Haman becomes so enraged at Mordecai that he has the king pass a decree to destroy all the Jews. And this was like years later, by the way. Remember that. Because Esther becomes queen, and then he doesn't bow before Haman. But then years later, Now he wants to exact his revenge.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That's kings for you.
No, that's some other guy. That's Haman.
That's some
He's
other
not a
guy
king.
for you.
Yeah.
Anyways. So he wants to kill all the Jews. When Mordecai learns of the edict, he goes to his cousin, Queen Esther, and pleads for her to intercede with the king. Overcoming her initial reluctance, she agrees to do so. The unit falls into 3 main sections. In the first section, the crisis is initiated when Mordecai refuses to bow to Haman, and Haman decides to kill all the Jews. In the second scene, Haman appeals to the king for the destruction of the Jews. The third scene, which we haven't gotten to yet, is the encounter between Mordecai and Esther. These first 2 scenes form a parallel to the episode of Queen Vashti. So I'm going to read out this. So here are some parallels with Xerxes and Vashti in Esther 1:10 through 12. Sorry, 1:10 through 22. Xerxes, apparently full of pride, orders Vashti to appear before his guests. Vashti refuses to obey the king's orders. Xerxes is publicly humiliated. That's implied. Xerxes is filled with wrath. Memucan warns Xerxes that all women will become insubordinate. Xerxes issues a decree attempting to subjugate all women. And then in the Haman and Mordecai thing we just read, Haman, apparently full of pride, expects all people to follow the king's orders to bow before him. Mordecai refuses to obey the king's orders. Haman is publicly humiliated. That's implied. Haman is filled with wrath. Haman warns Xerxes that the Jews are insubordinate. Xerxes issues a decree attempting to exterminate all Jews.
Yes.
So a good amount of parallels there. So let's continue here, I guess.
So let's get into chapter 4.
Chapter 4, the last chapter of the day. And what's really
Hooray.
interesting is that after this chapter, there are immediately 2 additions.
Oh? Well, are we going to cover that today?
We are not covering that
We're
today.
going to start
We'll cover
tomorrow
that
with it. Or
next time.
Next
Sunday,
week.
huh?
Yep. Next week we're going to be reading those. And those are editions C and D. But let's finish this up. You can also feel free to look through this. Although, go find chapter 4 because you're in chapter 3 for it right now. So I'm going to start reading. When Mordecai learned all that had been done, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the midst of the city. And he cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went up to the entrance of the king's gate, for no one was allowed to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth. And in every province, wherever the king's command and his decree reached, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting and weeping and lamenting. And many of them lay in sackcloth and ashes. When Esther's young women and her eunuchs came and told her, the queen was deeply distressed. And this is still nobody knows that she's a Jew.
Wow.
She sent garments to clothe Mordecai so that he might take off his sackcloth, but he would not accept it. Then Esther called for Hatak, one of the king's eunuchs, who had been appointed to attend her, and ordered him to go to Mordecai to learn what this was and why it was. Hatak went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened to him, and the exact sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasuries for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa for their destruction. And it's weird that one of the king's eunuchs would not have read this decree before. That he might show it to Esther and explain it to her and command her to go to the king to beg his favor and plead with him on behalf of her people. And Hatak went and told Esther what Mordecai had said. Then Esther spoke to Hatak and commanded him to go to Mordecai and say, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes to the king inside the inner court without being called, there is but one law, to be put to death,
Oh, man.
except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter, so that he may live. But as for me, I have not been called to come into the king these 30 days. I need a drink because my throat is getting all...
All right.
find something neat?
I found a little bit. So, as for the law itself, there's not a lot of evidence for any such
a law,
policy.
yeah.
Seems an absurd law.
What verse are you on right now?
I am about to start verse 12.
Okay, so back here in verse 6, the city square of Susa has been excavated by archaeologists. These locations often served as markets and public meeting places in ancient times. It would have been very crowded. Mordecai and Hatak could meet in such a place without drawing attention to themselves. It also goes into the copy of the decree.
Mhm.
So there are a number of reasons why a Hebrew writer might do this, but the most common and likely here is for emphasis in an age where paper was still not a common commodity and writing a widely acquired skill. A physical copy of the decree would lend a sense of gravity to the situation. As earlier, the narrators used a series of 3 verbs.
Also, it would lend authority. Well, actually, no, it wouldn't to the author if it went everywhere. So, never mind. Go ahead. Continue.
They used a series of 3 verbs, show, explain, command. In this case, however, the verbs are not synonymous, as in 3:13, destroy, slay, and annihilate. The sense is not one of completeness, but urgency. 3 terse phrases are used, designed to convey the idea of a rapid response that Mordecai seeks from Esther. So I found that noteworthy.
What?
And also it says in 4:10, it's necessary to provide a complement to the verb commanded him. In Hebrew, the verb tsava or tsawa or something like that can have the sense of commission and be used without a complementary verb, as in Genesis 50:16, quote, and they commissioned messengers to speak unto Joseph.
Okay.
So that's
that. And they told Mordecai what Esther had said. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, "Do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this." Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, "Go, gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law." You're the queen! "And if I perish, I perish."
You're the queen!
Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. So they're going to gather all the Jews in the city, and they're going to fast for a long time. And Esther's going to talk to to the king. She's the queen. Of course she can go in there. Ridiculous.
Nah, not welcome.
Yep.
And one thing, while you're looking for something, hopefully about this whole, if the queen walks in, why is she afraid? Could you hand me the Old Testament survey, please?
Yeah.
I'm just going to point out a little interesting piece to show that there is maybe not necessarily maybe in some way there's reliance on motifs that were used in the past, but this is just a comparison with Joseph. Let's see. Where is Joseph here? All right. The story of Joseph may have served as a model for the author of Esther. Both are stories of Jews in foreign court who overcome obstacles and achieve fabulous success. In both stories, the proximity of the protagonist to royal power results in the saving of his or her ethnic group. In Joseph's case, his father's family, in Esther's, the Jewish people. Both stories involve cases of concealed identity. Joseph is unrecognized by his brothers. Esther conceals her Jewishness. Most intriguing, several times the stories demonstrate almost exact linguistic correspondence. For example, at Esther 6:11 and Genesis 41:42 through 43. So I'm just going to read this one verse here from Esther. And he clothed Mordecai, and he caused him to ride in the square of the city, and he cried out before him. And then the Joseph story. And he clothed him, and he caused him to ride in his second chariot, and they cried out before him. So very, very similar.
Okay, so with this, they were seeking out the Jews, and
Look at his books. He's got 3 books on
Yeah, I see, yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of hilarious.
So at this point, they're seeking out the Jews, but the Jews on a specific holy day fast. And Esther has fasted because she's a Jew, which means, gets pointed out here, we can probably assume the maids knew that Esther was Jewish, since it would have been difficult for her to ask them to abstain from food and water without knowing why.
Yeah,
Apparently,
that's fair.
Mordecai's instructions for Esther not to reveal her Jewishness did not extend to her close associates in the women's quarters, who could be counted on to keep confidence. But Mordecai here is worried that because there are people who know that she's Jewish, that she is not safe, and that if she goes before the king or whatever, then she is putting herself in more danger.
Interesting. Okay.
Where she says, if I die, I die, right? And here it says, Esther already has the threat of death hanging over her head. If she does nothing, Mordecai has cursed her with destruction. If she goes to the king, she may perish. If she doesn't go, she still may perish. Caught between a rock and a hard place, all she can do is accept the fate that Mordecai has thrust upon her. The grammatical construction here is very similar to what is found in Genesis 43:13, where Jacob is forced to send his son Benjamin to Egypt, not knowing that it is Joseph who has demanded Benjamin's presence. Jacob assumes that he will probably use his youngest son. Knowing he has no choice but to comply, he says with resignation, "If I am bereaved, I am bereaved." And that, I think, is the end of what we're covering today for the show.
Definitely.
If you enjoyed our show today...
Son of a bitch.
If you enjoyed our show today, give us a like, subscribe,
You son of a bitch.
buy our wacky and fun t-shirts.
Don't listen to him, asshole. You
Uh,
douche. I got another. Oh my god.
Yeah, you seemed
This
really
is how we get
engrossed in
likes
that
and
book.
subs. And Lawrence just calling everybody douches and sons of bitches.
Ridiculous. I just had all these bookmarks and you're just.
There-
Put it back.
There was no bookmark, and I was open to...
Oh,
I know
guys,
because
guys.
I took it out because we were reading through it.
We don't have any beholds today.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
no beholds.
0
there were
beholds.
no beholds.
Real fast.
Also, fuck you.
Me?
No, Ruben.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I didn't do anything. I just closed the book.
Are you ready?
It was
for-
open to the
Sounds
last
like you did
page of the
something wrong.
chapter.
Sounds like I'll see you next Sunday.
Oh my god, no, not yet.
Please.
Go, no, fuck you. Everybody, Patreon and Facebook and Twitter and Teespring, MilwaukeeAtheist.com, and what else do we do? Sherm Journal. Go look that up. A lot of cool stuff on Patreon though.
Our other channel that we never talk about.
Has
man,
anything
Nightbot
happened?
hasn't even.
Oh yeah, our Amazon wish list.
Yes, our Amazon wish list. You want to see a video on some stuff? Get us some books. We'll use those as sources in some video.
Probably.
Almost definitely.
If we really can't find anything in there to talk about, then
And it'll be part of something.
yeah.
But either way, everybody, thank you for joining us, and we will
See you next Sunday.